Hi everyone, thanks ever so much for joining me today. My name's Keely and I'm a paper cutting artist. I'm based up in the northeast of England, so I'm right up north. Thankfully, the sun's come out for us this afternoon, so we should be able to see everything really well. I started paper cutting around about 6.5 years ago now, I think it was. I started it as a way to relax and unwind after I'd been at my stressful day job. We all know day jobs get a bit stressful. I've tried loads of different crafts before, and was rubbish at all of them. And then one day I saw someone doing a video, not too unlike this, of it on Facebook, and I decided to give it a go, and I was hooked from the very outset. It completely switches off my brain. It allows me to get results really quickly, which is the other thing I love about it. And yeah, it's just generally fun. You don't need many tools. I'm going to go through them in a moment. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you how to cut a bigger version of this dragonfly. You can see there. So we're going to cut a much bigger version. There's a free template that you can download. I think they're going to put the links in the comments for us, so you can do this at home as well. So as I'm going, in a moment I'm going to have to flip my screen down, so I won't be able to see everything that's in the chat or in the comments. But what I'll do is, if I've got time at the end, I'll come back and answer any questions that you've got, or if I haven't got time during the broadcast, I'll go back afterwards and I'll answer all your questions as we go along. Okay, so without further ado, let me flip my screen and show you what we're going to do. So bear with me, because this is going to go a little bit wobbly just for a second. Okay, let's just tilt that a little bit more. Bring that up a slight. You can see my giant cup of tea there, which is essential, absolutely essential. So this is our template that we're going to have a go at today. Okay, the tools that you'll need in order to do this template is one of these, which is a self-healing cutting mat. You can pick them up in pretty much any craft shop, online, you know, pretty much anywhere, to be fair. They're not very expensive, they're pretty reasonably priced. The other thing that you'll need is something to cut with. Now this is the slightly scary bit. Oh, I'm just creasing my template. So this is a surgical scalpel handle, and you see I've got a really sharp blade in. So I use a Swan Morton handle. There's lots of different ones that are available on the market, but I like this one because it's a lot like using a pen, and paper cutting is kind of like drawing with a knife instead of a pencil, so you can get a really nice hold and it's really comfortable to use. Then these blades you can change, so it's not just one blade forever. You can change these, and the blades that I like to use is a Swan Morton number 11. I like it for two reasons. I like it because it's got a really nice sharp tip, which means it's great for doing fine detail, but it's also super flexible, which means it's brilliant for doing curves. So a couple of things to bear in mind when you're going to start paper cutting is make sure you're really comfortable. So get yourself sat down and make sure you've got a bit of support on your back, because sometimes your paper cuts can take a little while. And the most important thing is that you're comfortable and your back supported, so you don't end up with a bit of backache or anything like that. My favourite at the moment, I'm cutting on my desk in my studio. I don't normally do that. I normally cut downstairs in my living room on my super comfortable couch with a couple of cushions behind me, and I have, believe it or not, I do it on my ironing board. That's right, my ironing board. I use it because it allows me to raise and lower the level that I'm at. So if I'm doing fine detail, I can raise it up higher, so I'm not bent, hunched right over it. I've still got my back nice and straight. Okay, but any desk, you know, a nice supportive office chair, anything like that will do. If it lowers and raises, that's an added bonus, and if it tilts a little bit, super duper bonus, but not totally necessary. The other thing that you'll need is some paper to print your templates onto. or to draw your own templates on. I use, this is one of my favourite papers to use. This is a hammered paper, so it's slightly textured. It's thicker than your normal printer paper. I wouldn't recommend trying to cut through printer paper. It's really, really thin and it'll tear quite easily. So I would say go for something, when you're looking for paper, you look for the weight. It's in GSM. Look for something that's around about 100. This one is 120, which I find ideal for me, but try a few. And I wouldn't go any higher if you're cutting by hand than about 160. Any higher than that, you're into card territory, and you might find that you have to press really, really hard, and that means that you lose a little bit of control, or you get a hand ache, which is, you know, the worst thing ever. So you can see how I'm holding my knife. I'm holding it just like I hold a pen. Okay, point down. It's got one super duper sharp side, one side that won't do anything at all. Okay, I'm not going to grip really, really hard. I don't need to press really, really hard. I'm just going to go in with a medium strength. You'll see a lot as I'm doing this. I'm going to be doing things like this, and I'm going to be moving my mat, and I'm going to move my paper. That does a couple of things. That just gives me a lot more control of what I'm doing, and it means I'm not bending my arm into weird positions. That means I'm likely to cut myself, which, you know, we don't want to happen. The other top tip that I've got for you is to go slow and take your time. I've been cutting for, as I said earlier, about 6.5 years, so I'm pretty speedy now. When I first started out though, things would take me 3, 4, 5 times longer than they do now. So take your time, go slow, and enjoy the process. Enjoy taking the time out. When we're paper cutting, I always start with the little tiny details that are in the middle of my design, and then I work from the middle and I go outwards. So that means that if I mess up a little tiny bit and like slice something off, I haven't done too much. I don't feel like I've wasted a whole template, but it also keeps the paper more rigid, so it's less likely to tear. All right, so shall we dive in? So the first part I'm going to do is I'm going to do our dragonfly's little eyes at the top. Okay, so I'm going to twist my paper so I'm at an angle that's comfortable for me. And then I'm just going to find a point, and I'm going to go in, and I'm just going to pull gently towards myself. Okay. The other thing I should have mentioned this before. This is the back. So don't worry if you're not bang on the lines, because no one's going to know. When we're finished, we're going to flip it over and no one will know you're nowhere near the lines. Okay. So I've done my first cut down. Then I'm going to find where I started. And I'm going to gently come round in a little curve. I'm going to move my paper a little bit so that my hand's hardly moving, and I'm letting the knife just do all of the work for me. Okay. First cut done. And then I'm going to go over and I'm going to do the other side. So as I said, I'm going to swivel my paper a lot. You'll see me do this a lot. It's just so that I'm always in the same sort of position. And again, I'm just coming round, finding where I started and taking that little bit away. Okay, now I'm going to work down the body. Okay, doing the little triangles. So triangles are probably one of the easiest shapes to do rather than curves. So we're just going to find one point, pull towards. We're going to turn the paper so that we're still, our hands in the same position. Go from the other point and join it up. Turn again and do the last one across. And then out it pops. And then next one. Exactly the same. Join the 2 points. I would say if you're doing this at home and you want to give it a go, if you can, try and do it in natural daylight. It's easiest on your eyes, and it just makes it a lot easier to see, especially if you're going to use like a shiny paper, like a pearlescent paper. They're one of my favourites to use, and if you're using artificial light, you get a lot more shimmer, and it makes it a lot more difficult for you to see your lines and what you're doing. So I'm now doing this sort of chevron shape. So I've just gone on the outside, and now I'm going to go find where I started on there. I'm just going to curve in slightly, move my paper and do the opposite side. Into there, move again, and just round into the top, and that will come out as well. Okay, don't worry if when you're doing this, that your pieces aren't coming out as easily as mine have done on those last ones. Just hold it very, very gently and just use the very tip of your knife just to tease areas out. So you would hold there and you just tease out. I'll try and show you on one of the bigger pieces. So next we're going to do these little shapes, sort of teardroppy type shapes in his body. So I like doing these. These are my favourite type of cut because they're tiny and you can do them in seconds. So we're just, again, finding a point, curving ever so slightly round. I'm using a bit of pressure to curve the blade. That's why I like this one. And then just the opposite on that end, and that will pop out. And then I'm just going to work my way down. So if you're feeling super duper confident, you could even add a few extra in, so there's loads more detail in this one. But as is, it's a good one for beginners because you get to do a practice of curves and of straights, and that although it isn't really, really complex, there's not lots and lots of holes to cut out of it, the finished effect looks brilliant. So we're just going to keep going along. Now normally when I'm cutting work at home and I'm doing bigger pieces, usually what I do is I put a movie or something on in the background, you know, one of my favourite movies, nothing loud and noisy, just something nice and calm and chilled. Just because it then stops me from sitting here for sort of like 4 or 5 hours. I know when the movie finishes or the TV episode finishes that I need to get up and start moving. Otherwise I have been known to sit for, I think I did 6 hours once. It was very naughty. So we're just working our way down to the final one. See, okay, and they're all out. So you can see it's starting to take shape. So next we're going to work on the wings, and we're just going to go from the middle towards the outside. So I'm going to do this little tiny part first. So it's quite easy, this one, because I can almost do it as sort of straight lines. So I've just found one. Again, I'm twisting my paper. I don't know if you hear, but I love the sound that it makes going through the paper. It's lovely. So we've done that one, and now we're going to come along and do these. So again, don't worry if you're not bang on the lines. You're better off to be slightly inside them, because you can always cut away a little bit more at the end if you want to. Brush that one away. Where did it go? There it is. Normally when I'm cutting I end up with little bits flying all over the mat. But we don't throw them away, we keep them. And then we chop them up even smaller and turn them into confetti and people's presents and cards and things. So I'm not worried that my knife's come out there as I'm going around that shape, because I'll just find where I was and carry on. Okay, let's do this big one now. So you can see I'm using this hand as well. I'm right-handed, so I'm using my left hand just to keep it steady. It doesn't matter if you're left or right-handed. The great thing is it works both ways. And I'm just using my other hand and my nails just to keep it nice and steady. And as I get further along, again, I'm twisting my paper, so you can see I'm barely moving my hand. I'm letting, sort of gripping my fingers towards myself, do all the work and let the knife do the work. I'm not pressing really hard. Although when I first started, I did used to press really hard. But it's like everything, isn't it? The more you practice, the more you get used to it. So that's that one out. I'll do these two little bits. I'm just curving around. And then we'll do this one. I do hope you can hear the sound of the knife going through the paper, because it's brilliant when that happens. So now I'm going to do this little part. Now obviously I've cut away quite a big area there, so I'm just going to use my nail, and this is the handy bit of having long gel polish covered nails, just to keep that nice and steady and flat down for me. I'm going to pull towards. Swiveling my paper again. Pull that bit out. Now we're going to do the big one. Oops. Caught on something else on the desk. There we go. It's really difficult to remember to keep talking to you as I'm doing this, because I'm used to being really quiet when I do this because I'm concentrating. And I'm just going. Tear that one out. So I'm just going to move some stuff around on my desk because my piece of paper's catching. Alright, next one. So you can see already we're going to get an idea. Once I've finished this one, I'll flip it over so you get an idea of what it's going to look like on the other side. So as you can see, when I was going around that curve, I moved my paper even more. I'm going to come back down the other side to join up where I started. And then last one. Okay, so let's flip this over and see what it looks like so far. So you can see when I flip it over that it's how effective all those veins in the wings are going to look. They're going to look really special. It's going to look really delicate. So we'll move on to our next one. And again, I'm just starting from the middle of the body and working my way out. So you can pull that bit further. Can you see where I find it really relaxing now, because it's that repetitive motion and you just slow and steady. These little ones. This one. This is like my calm hour now. So yeah, I remember when I very first started, I wouldn't have been nearly as smooth and as showed with my blade. I was quite nervous the first time I had to go, thinking, oh, I'm gonna chop myself, I'm gonna cut myself. But touch wood, I'm touching my desk, I've managed to go 6 years and I've not chopped anything off, stabbed myself or anything like that. So it's really good. A couple of things I would as well say, if you're going to do this as a hobby at home, just remember when you change your blades, because you can change them, and as a beginner I'd say change them every sort of half an hour, 20 minutes or so if you're cutting, because you're probably going to be pressing hard and that'll blunt them really quickly. But when you're doing them, you can't put them in the general waste. Just be mindful of that. You'll need to either take them along to your local chemist or something like that. I know that some sort of council recycling areas will take them if you have them like in a closed jar or sealed. I've got a specialist sharps box, and every now and again I take it along to my chemist and they dispose of them safely for me. So we're motoring through this one now. Onto the last bit. Again, you can get materials, the blades, the handles, everything like that. You can get them from a lot of your local craft shops. I'll just get that over so you can see now how we're going. There we go. So we've done those 2 wings, so we're going to move on to our other 2 now. So I'm just going to do exactly the same as I did on the first half. I'm just going to start with the smaller, work from the middle and outwards. I'm going to try and open the chat in a second as well and see if there's any questions that you have. And I'm going to pause for a sip of my tea. That's essential as well. A cup of tea while I work. Although sometimes I have to remember to put it in one of those stay warm canisters, because I get absorbed and I forget it's there and then it goes cold, and that's just a disappointment. So this little one. Do this big one. Just come round. We're motoring now, aren't we? This is going well, this is going well. So I remember when I very first started, this is a template that I've drawn and designed myself. When I very first started, I really didn't think I could draw. I thought I was, you know, rubbish at art. I hadn't taken it at school or at college or anything like that. So I used to buy templates from other designers, but I was going through them so quickly that I decided to start trying to draw. And now I think I'm doing quite well. I've got favourite sort of motifs to draw. I love doing insects. Bees are my absolute favourite. I'll show you a couple of bees when we're finished. I love doing bees, but I love doing like leaves, foliage, flowers, anything sort of nature inspired. My phone is absolutely full to the brim of pictures of plants. My house is also full to the brim with plants, because they're just the shapes, the veins and the leaves, everything like that. They're just a constant source of inspiration for patterns, and you know, seeing how they grow just gives you ideas. Well, it gives me ideas all the time. So you notice an ongoing motif in all of my work. Very much nature inspired, very much flora and fauna. My most recent are all inspired by my ever-growing collection of houseplants. Thank you, lockdown. Needed an extra thing to do. So I went from one houseplant and now I think I'm up to about 30. And it's still going. So that's what I was saying earlier about it not coming out cleanly. So I'm just going to take a very delicate hold of the corner, and I'm just using the very tip of my knife just to make a tiny little extra cut to take it away, rather than pulling on it and potentially ripping the paper. I'm glad that happened so I could show you. That's good. So if you are brand new to paper cutting, you may find that your blade is starting to drag a little bit in the paper by the time you've got to this sort of stage, purely because you're probably pressing quite hard. I've found that a lot when I've taught workshops, that as beginners we tend to press. We think we need to press a lot harder than we actually do. So now would probably be a really good time for you to change your blade so it's fresh for the last wing and when we go around the outside. But mine's feeling okay. I can kind of, as I say, through practice, I know it starts to feel almost like it's dragging and catching a little bit, and it's not as easy as it was when I started. And it actually sounds slightly different as well. A bit like when you're using a guillotine and it stops sounding like super sharp. Okay. So we are on now to the last wing. Trying to make sure I get that in the middle for you to see what I'm doing. So again, as with all of the others, we're just going to work from the middle outwards, and I'm always using my left hand to keep everything into place. Stop it slipping. That's a big one. Just going to open the chat and see. Oh. That's quite a big one, that. So if you're new, you might not do it in one fell stroke like that. Just take your time and just go as slow as you need to. Don't worry if your blade comes out. Just find where you were and just carry on. If it comes out and you're feeling it's a little bit raggedy on the edges, you can always delicately shave a little bit more off. I tend to do that quite a lot. do this bit. And again, just my hands keeping that steady, my nail is there just to keep the paper weighted down, because I don't want it tearing at this point. Lovely. It's the joys of having long nails, being able to do that. You see, but you can see I'm adjusting hand positions all the time, just to keep things steady. Just going to swivel this paper a little bit. I'm just going to see if I can see what everyone's saying. Sorry about that. Lovely. Hello everybody, thank you for joining. Sorry if I just turned my camera off there. Fat finger syndrome. I'm on my phone, you see, I'm not on a tablet or anything. So we're nearly at the end of the wings now. I've got another 2 sections to take out after this. These 2 to take out. That's that big one done. So the last part. And then again, I'll flip it over so you can see what we're dealing with so far. You might find that as you're going, you're moving all over your mat, like you're back and forth with your piece of paper. That is totally normal. Happens to me all the time. Right, so again, that bit's done what I was saying about before, where it's not come out away quite as cleanly as I would like. So I'm just taking a hold of it really gently and just coming in with my blade from both angles and teasing it out almost. Okay, so let's get that so you can actually see it. When we flip it over, we can see, we get a good idea now of how the final piece is going to look. It's going to look fabulous. So now we've done all of the middle part, we now need to go all the way around the outside. Okay, so again, if you haven't changed your blade yet and you knew, this would be definitely a time to change it, because we want our blade as sharp as possible so that we get a really nice clean finish on this. So I'm gonna start with the delicate sticky outy bit, so his legs and antennae type thing, and then I'm going to do the wings, and very lastly I'm going to do the long body. Okay, and again, I'm not going to rush, I'm just going to take it slow. I'm going to turn it so it's easy for me to get to, and I'm just going to start down here where the wing meets his body. Just going to go in again. Don't worry if you're not bang on the line, go a little bit outside it if you're not feeling confident, because you can always trim a little bit away, and just keep turning your paper. Make sure you keep yourself in a nice comfortable hand position. Okay, now when I get to the very tip here of his, so these tips here, I'm going to cut a little bit further than the end. Okay, the reason I'm going to do that becomes apparent when we go on the second one. So I'm going to go back along the other side of his leg now, Just keeping it nice and slow and steady. And I'm going to cross over there. So what that does when I lift it out of the paper is it makes it easier to lift out the paper, but it also gives us a really nice sharp fine point, which, you know, just makes it look great and makes you look like a total pro. Okay, so we've done one leg, so I'm going to go around and do the other one. So just a little cut in there, find where I finished, start to come round. You see, all the time I'm moving the paper as I go. I'm going a little bit slower than I probably was on the wings. Just keeping it tense. My hand is always pretty much in the same place. A little bit there. And now we're going to do the second leg. So we're going to do exactly the same with the crossover technique that we used on the first one. I'm going to go nice and slow and cut a little bit further than we need to. And then I'm going to do that little bit and then come along the other side. And just cross over there so I know I've got a nice point again. Okay, so next thing we'll do is we'll do the other two legs. So again, I've turned my paper so that I'm in the position that I want to be. I'm just going to find my point. Nice and slow. Cross over. Same again. And slow. And I've crossed over at the end, so I'm going to have that nice point again on this one. All right, this leg, obviously this time, the way I've drawn the template, it's a very, very small gap. So you've got a couple of options. You could shave a little bit more off. If you're feeling good, you can go in for the small gap, or you could do a small cut here and leave this part joined together. So it's totally up to you. I'm probably going to shave a little bit more off the wing, I think. And pull towards, and then I'm just going to use my nail to keep it nice and steady there. And cross over. Okay, so we've done all of the sticky out bits, and now we're going to go around the wings. Just swivel it so I'm comfortable. So we're going to start with this one. So we'd already cut that bit. I'm just going to make sure I had. And then we're just going to come along nice and slow. And we're going to do the crossover technique on these little sort of tips on the wing. Okay, so we're going to be dealing now with a rather big curve. So again, just take your time and keep moving your paper. You'll see how I move mine as I go. So we're just going to go in where we finish there. And then just nice and slow. Move so I'm comfortable. Come around the curve. You see that all the time, so I've moved it so I'm like upside down almost. And I'm going to come in. Nice and slow. First wing done. Do a little bit there. Let's do our second one. Again. You can see I'm not worrying too much if I'm not bang on the line. It's totally fine. Gives it a bit of individuality. And no one will know because we're going to turn it over at the end. Move that again. And just find the point. So I've slowed right down there so I can find the point without cutting into the body. So that's the first two wings done. And you see they're going to start to come out. Okay, so we need to be even more delicate and slow on the second one so that we don't end up tearing these parts. So I'm going to start this time. I'm going to start with the bottom wing because that means I'm comfortable, and that's the way I like to cut, always towards myself. So I'm just going to go in where I finished on that leg, and I'm just going to follow the line around using my left hand just to keep the paper steady, stop it bunching or ruching, because that's when we get little tears and we don't want that. Just going to turn again, watching the other side of my template to make sure that I'm not damaging my wings. So I'm even slower on this one, but that's fine. So come up, there we go. Turn again, this little bit. I'm going to come round and around, so we're not far off being done now. Doing really well. Goes in there. Find where we finished, and again this is where our nails come in handy. We're not rushing, just slow. These are like the hold your breath moments almost. So I'm not worried that my knife's come out. I'm just going to find where I finished and carry on again. And keep turning. You can see I've moved like all over my mat there. And again, use your crossover technique on there. Nice and slow. Okay, so that's our 4 wings cut. We now just need to do, so we've done our legs, done our wings, we now just need to do the mane of the body. So again, always turning so that you're in your comfortable position. Excuse me, I'm just going to take this out of my tea. Should have put it in a heated cup, it's gone cold now. Right, and we're just going to go find where we finished that leg. I'm just going to go nice and slow. Again, I'm not worried if we're not bang bang on the line. It's better to be a little bit outside it so you can trim away. I'm not going to worry that it's straight as an arrow because nature isn't straight as an arrow. And then we're going to curve around. And again, we're going to use our crossover technique, so I'll pull down further than I need to. Okay, last one, last cut, other side. So again, find where we finished. So as you can see, the motions are really quite repetitive, and that's partly what turns my brain off so well. You just get lost in doing it. Okay, so we've now cut all the way around, and we should be ready to take him out of the paper. So I always keep my blade in my hand still. Hopefully this is going to come out really nice and easily because I've used my crossover techniques on the points, but we shall see. So what I do is I gently push down my cut. Already I can see a bit that hasn't. There we go. So gently push down on my cut and lift my paper. When I get into these little bits, this is where you find out that you've forgotten to do one, or you need to use the tip of your knife just to tease it out. I'm being really, really delicate because I don't want to tear anything at the moment. Okay, pop that to one side, keep that. You can do some miniatures. And then don't forget, this is the back. So at the minute, you can still see a few of the little, if you zoom in anyway, I can still see a few of the little pen lines, so to speak. So what we do is we flip him over. And there he is, all finished, ready to go. So you could put him any which way you wanted to. So a couple of ideas that you could do. Obviously he's quite big, but he'd look really lovely in one of those double glass hanging frames in your window, so it's silhouette almost. It would cast a beautiful, beautiful shadow over the room. You could maybe do a really nice bright watercolour or something behind, like a splashy watercolour that would have blues and greens and purples in, you know, all the colours that you get in dragonflies in nature. And then once it's dry, you could stick it to that and pop it inside a frame. You know, you could do anything with it really. You could almost use it as a stencil, splatter through. You could even, depending on what type of paper you've used, you could add a little bit of colour with watercolours as well to the actual finished paper cut. I know a lot of people that do that, and that would be what it is. So I'm just going to pop and see if you've left me any questions in the chat. I love that. Helen's still here on wing 3. Brilliant. Well done, Helen. Well done. Good afternoon, everybody. You've been from everywhere. You people tuning in for. That's lovely. It's really nice. So as I say, so that's sort of a crash course in paper cutting. As I say, the template is available to download from the website, and the link will be in the comments as well for you all. It's free for you to use personally. Have fun with it, play around with it. I'd love to see what you do. If you're sharing anything anywhere, if you tag me, my business is Kppapercuts. So you can tag me anywhere on socials, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm at Kppapercuts all together. Brilliant, thank you very much. So yeah, you can tag me on that. And I'll show you a couple of other things that you can do. So obviously that's him finished. Let me show you something that I did a couple of weeks ago that I just love. So I love playing around with different colour combos. So what we did there was one type of cut. This is a different type of cut. So the light's not very good for you to see, but this is a mixture of textured and pearlescent papers. So if the sun ever comes back out again, and I'm in the northeast, so you know it might not for a while, that the pink is a pearlescent and it actually shimmers in light. It's really, really pretty. But I loved playing on the, rather than doing traditional black and gold, I've gone with green and pink, inspired by my nephew's bedroom. He loves it. So as I said, bees, my thing, massively my thing. Another little bee that I've done. Let me bring him in. Let me bring him in gold. He's super, super shiny. So with this one, you can totally see how shiny he is in the light. So again, that one's cut with pearlescent paper, which you can get online in stores. Your local, if you go into an art shop, you'll be able to find these. They're really, really good. And if you use your local art shop, they'll know where to source this sort of thing for you. But he's really cute, isn't he? I'm doing that one in a workshop later on in the week. And then once you're feeling a little bit more confident and you've built yourself up a little bit, I know, sorry, it's Christmas, but I had to show you. So because it's a really good example of how you can add in colour behind your main paper cut. So you can use tracing paper to go around your shape, cut it out in a different colour and just pop it behind. And it just adds little pops of colour into a design. You can use multiple colours. You can add extra things on once you've backed it. You know, there's no limit to what you can do with a piece of paper and a scalpel, is basically what I'm telling you. And there's no limit. The only limit is what you can picture in your head. And if it doesn't work first time, it's okay. Recycle the paper and do another one. Try it again. You know, there's no harm in trying over and over again. So this is so we'll put him next to his big brother so you can see. I always think Dragonfly is a male. I don't know why. That's really very wrong, isn't it? So there you can see we've got the little version and the bigger version. And there we go. So let me just double check the chat again one last time to make sure. Oh yes, Catherine, you are another KB. Woohoo! Oh, brilliant. Helen's nearly finished hers. That's great to hear. Great to hear. As I said, don't forget just to tag me with your finished pieces. I'd absolutely love to see them. I hope you've enjoyed what I've showed you. I hope you've learned a little bit about a hobby or craft that you maybe didn't know very much about. Have a look online. Look it up. Just, you know, search paper cutting art or hand cut paper. That's a really good one to search for, and you'll find loads of different styles, loads of different influences. It's done all over the world, so you'll find hundreds of thousands of us. There's loads of us out there that you think aren't there. And if you've got any questions, as I say, pop them in the chat, pop them in the comments. I'll come back later on and answer any questions that are in there. I hope I've explained everything really well for you, and happy cutting, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. Bye.